What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Fantasy Phoenix podcast, here to give you tips for NBL SuperCoach. Let's start off by reviewing round 7. The singles round is now over, and hopefully with it, the low-scoring game weeks. We just missed out on the double ton as Source fouled out, leaving us stranded on 197. This caused us to drop about 80 spots or so to 265th overall. All of our start and sit calls were the right ones. Clintman was a semi-laid out, and that caused us to have to switch to Bannon for a very serviceable 23. Wardenberg was disappointing again for 19, and Cotton was absolutely awesome. Unfortunately not where we put the VC for our loophole though. PJC just didn't quite get it done. In some breaking news, the Hawks have parted ways with Jacob Jackomas, effective immediately as of this morning. Justin Tatum is going to be taking over as the interim head coach. There are some whispers that potentially they've already found the replacement. One hot topic being talked about is Trevor Gleeson. Obviously, they don't actually have to pay him much because anything they do pay him is being deducted from his salary anyway. So his income is the same regardless. So he's definitely one that's been talked about, along with Simon Mitchell and former Hawks coach Brian Goorjian. No matter what happens, how this is going to affect them and their opponents is going to be quite interesting. But I still feel if you own any, move them on until further notice and continue to target them as a fixture. In some other news, I was a guest on the SuperCoach Hub podcast earlier today and had a great chat with Barnesy there. Pretty sure it was over an hour. So if you want some more opinions on lots of players, be sure to check that out. I'll share the links on socials once the episode is live. 4 teams on the double this week with Cairns, New Zealand, Perth and Tassie. But only Cairns and New Zealand have doubles next week as well. So this makes trade options this week quite interesting. There's some cheap options out there in Bull Quoll and Mango Mathiang. And people will probably have some cash to spend moving on the Sem boys. With that in mind, let's take a look at some players to potentially trade in or out in our buy, sell, keep, and avoid segment. Buy are players that I think are good options to trade in if you don't already have them. Sell, players I think that are options to trade out if you do own them. Keep are players that are being traded out but I think you should consider keeping. And avoid are players that are being traded in but I think you should consider avoiding. Here's how our options from last week went. Our buy in Bryce Cotton scored 43 for the round and went up 16.9k. He was the second highest scorer of the week. Big tick. Our sell Travers had a 0 and missed due to that concussion. I mean, we all knew that was happening. Our keep, Wardenberg, scored 19, which I think was slight unders, but they have the dream schedule, so very happy holding him still. And our avoid was again Pat Miller, who was again revealed close to lockout that he was going to be missing the round. Overall, pretty happy with those. Moving on to this week. Buy Anthony Lamb. Lamb has really been hitting his stride as of late. He's one of the main men for New Zealand who really need to start winning some games, has back-to-back doubles, and is a legitimate captaincy option for this week. He's only going to get better as he gets more used to the team, the league, and how it's officiated, and the FIBA system. If you don't own him, it's still not too late to jump on. Sell. Once again, we're going with Luke Travers, and that's because Travers is still owned by over 30% of the competition. And even if he does return, he probably won't be straight back to his best. Melbourne also have that sparse schedule, and there are plenty of options to move him to at either the guard or the forward spot. Keep Bobby Clintman. Now, unless we get word that Clintman is missing the round, I can't see why more than 200 people have traded him out. From the sounds of things, he was mainly rested last week due to the matchup, and with their schedule, he's one you can lock in your team for the long term. I held him last week, and I'll be holding him. Avoid his teammate, AK Gak. Over 500 coaches have traded in Gak ahead of this round, and I don't think I'll be one of them. Cairns are looking to have a full-strength roster for the first time this year, and I think that really impacts Gak. He does have that great schedule, and I definitely prefer him if you were sideways trading Olbrich, but aside from that, I think there are better options there. Let's look at our top 3 captain options. At number 3, Bryce Cotton. I was really tossing up between him and Pinder, but I think you have to back in the form and the ceiling here. Matchups against Cairns at home and Brisbane away aren't necessarily the easiest, with both of them having defensive anchors that will go straight to him, including his former teammate Mitch Norton. He has rediscovered form, and his shot has begun to drop. If John really can keep the rotation similar to last game, then Cotton can be on for another big round. At number 2, Anthony Lamb. As I mentioned in the buy schedule, he's been really finding form as of late. He comes up against Tassie and the Hawks this week. I can see Lamb being one of, if not the top scorers for the round, and he could be a great differential captain option. That Hawks matchup, even with the new coach, could be very, very juicy for him at home. And with that in mind, our number one option is Parker Jackson Cartwright. We're backing in the man that has appeared on this list more than anybody this season, and just like Lamb, he has that great Hawks matchup at home. He has dropped off slightly in the last couple of weeks, but his floor is fantastic and his ceiling is as high as anyone in the competition. I'm probably going to be leaning towards PJC, but that will depend on our trade-ins, which we'll discuss in a second. Last week, our trades were good for both points and cash gen. We went Travers to Bannon and Air to Armstrong. All of those were on the bench. This week, I'm a bit undecided. Like most weeks, pretty much. But anyway, I'm leaning towards Source out and moving Wardenberg to the center spot so I can bring in Lamb. I also need to move Olbrich on as well, and I can afford a few guys, but I'm looking at potentially Bull Quoll or even a Mango if I'm feeling a bit exotic. There's also the Pinder option, but I like Lamb with the back-to-back doubles better at the moment. I do, as you saw earlier, still have J-Rob on the bench too, but if I have to hold one out of Olbrich and J-Rob for now, I'm very happy for it to be Justin Robinson. Next week, Cotton's going to go anyway, so there might be some funky moves where I can go Cotton and J-Rob out to a cheaper guard and a big-time player. Or maybe we could even look to the future, but that's getting ahead of ourselves. We'll deal with that when the time comes. As always, I'll post the final moves on X, so if you aren't already, make sure you're following us at FantasyPhoenix_. I think if you just type it in, we'll pop up, but if not, you can put the underscore at the end. Speaking of X, feel free to ask any questions or leave any feedback for us. We get to, I think, every single one. Not that we have millions coming in, but yeah, we do our best to make sure we're engaging with everybody so we can be as helpful as possible. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening or watching, depending on where you tuned in. If you're watching on YouTube, if you could hit that like button and subscribe to us, or if you're listening on Spotify, tap that follow button. It's all free and really helps us out. Or if you're really, really cool, you want to do all of them, definitely appreciate that. Good luck for round 8, everyone, and we'll see you all in the next episode.